Hello, first graders. This is Miss Byer, and welcome to our mini lesson. Today, in our mini lesson, we are going to talk about fiction stories versus nonfiction stories. Together, we are going to dive deeper into both kinds of stories and create definitions for each one. First, let's start by looking at fiction stories. Together, let's create a list of things that fiction books always have. If you know one, just shout it out. And together we will create a big list. Let's start. The story has made up characters. Absolutely, I hear someone shouting that out. The place where the story happens can be made up or real. Absolutely. And the last one, the story didn't really happen. That's true for all fiction books. So first graders, let's look at the list we created together. I'm sure there are more that we could add, and we could be here all day coming up with things about fiction books and examples of fiction books. But let's look to see what we have. The story has made up characters. The place where the story happens can be made up or real, and the story didn't really happen. So let's create one definition together for fiction stories. I think a good definition would be fiction books are stories that the author made up. And let's take a look at the three examples I have here of fiction stories. These are all stories we have read inside our classroom. The Magic Rabbit, Alyssa Betty's School, and Lily's Big Day. Let's take a look. Are those stories fiction? Yep, because they are fiction books that the author has made up. Fantastic. Okay, now let's take a look at our nonfiction stories. What are some things that we know are always true about nonfiction stories? Same thing, first graders, just shout it out. Let's see, always. Nonfiction stories. The book is about real things. The author teaches you facts and gives real information about something. There are some things that the author of nonfiction books sometimes does. Sometimes there are diagrams and labels to help us with our information. Sometimes there are real photographs, but these two things are things that nonfiction books always have. The book is always about real things, and the author is always teaching us facts and giving us real information. So together, let's create a definition for nonfiction stories. I think a good definition would be nonfiction books have true information that the writer tells about a topic. And here I have two stories that we have read inside our classroom. Water, up, down, and all around. And what do you do with a tail like mine? So here is your assignment today in our mini lesson readers. I would like you to see if you can find either a fiction or a nonfiction book at home. Maybe it's one you've borrowed from the library at Horace Mann. Maybe it's one that you have in your own library at your home. See if you can find a fiction story or a nonfiction story. When you are done reading that story, see, does this book match the definition that we have created together? If it's a fiction story, let's make sure that it matches our definition of fiction books or stories that the author made up. And if it is a nonfiction story you picked, let's make sure it matches our definition. Nonfiction books have true information that the writer tells about a topic. All right, readers, you may get started, and happy reading.